Hey guys, so I just read the 233rd shift slash chapter of Metamorphosed to Malleability called Aftermath. And I'll put it this way, it's a very good epilogue. Um, Basically, we find out that they've had to cremate what remained of the Maggie persona that Briella had created, Maggie the dog, because in the previous shift slash chapter, Maggie had basically sacrificed herself to help Briella beat the dark doppelganger of hers, Mimi, and defeat her and destroy her and all that. So they cremated her. They basically burned what was left. And we find out that they did the same with anything that was like left over, like any other residue or chemicals or whatever. But we also find out that the reason they did it with Maggie, and as well as then buried her, buried her in the ground, is so that nobody, even years in the future, if they decide to dig her up, like if they're gonna excavate, like if somebody was to move into the house after Briella and Crystal leave and dig up the ground to do some excavations or, some remodeling, and stuff like that, that basically there wouldn't be any chance of, them finding evidence of the compound that helped Briella get the powers that she has, basically the formula compound that she, to help, create her powers. And then, of course, they did the same with the rest of the stuff, but what Briella tells Elanier, I think that's what his name is now, I think I got it now right, Elanier, or something like that. And Crystal, what she tells Elanier that her and Crystal did is, not only did they cremate what was left of Maggie and buried her so that, nobody could, even if they dig it up, could, discover any evidence of the compound left over, could basically be nothing there. She basically said she did this, like I said, she did the same thing with what was left, in the house, that had the chemical or any evidence of the chemical and stuff. She and Crystal basically burned it. They burned it, if you will, burned all the evidence that was there, but instead of throwing it out, what they did is they burned it to a point that, again, even if somebody tried to figure out what it was or would figure out what it is, they wouldn't be able to duplicate it or anything because there'd be nothing for them to utilize. But anyway, what she does is she takes what's left of it after they burn it, puts it in a canister, takes it, down into the basement and locks it up in a safe that she has down there, or she bought to put down there. She locks it up and everything so that it's like, gone out, out of sight, out of mind kind of deal. And Elanier kind of points out that it seems that Briella is a little paranoid and stuff, which, Briella does agree, is kind of true, but, she just doesn't want to take a chance, even though burning the stuff basically makes sure there is no chance. She doesn't want to, have a reminder of what happened. She also lets it known that she's going to be bringing in some contractors or people to assess the damage and help repair the house and stuff. Basically the kind of people that you would hire to do repairs, and they don't ask questions of, oh, how did this happen? How did that happen? That you just tell them, hey, I need this done, I need that done, and that's it. And that's pretty much what her plan is, to kind of get the house back in order. But we also find out from Elana that Briella and Crystal spent the night there. And that even though Briella had suggested Crystal to go home and everything, Crystal, being her fiance and her love, is like, hey, I wasn't about to just, leave you, that I was not about to just leave you here on your own after what happened. So Crystal stayed there tonight. And even Elania kind of offered, hey, if you need a place to stay and everything, I think she offered it to Crystal, because of what happened and stuff. Or even to Briella. No, I think it was Briella. I think it may have been both. I'm not really sure. I'm going to go back and reread. But she offered, I think, to most likely Briella to, and Crystal to stay at her house. She has extra room. But Crystal denies her offer, says it's not, is glad that she's willing to offer it, but, she's glad she's kept the apartment because of, situations like this, coming up. Anyway, anyway, they go into the lab, they kind of get comfortable. Briella shapeshifts herself into a big cushion, if you will, big cushiony she basically she shapeshifts, morphs herself into a big, cushy beanbag, is what she does. Beanbag. And both Crystal and Ilana sit on her and get comfortable. And she's able to materialize, or materialized, as DeviantArt's Michelle puts it, materialize a mouth on the front end, the front side, if you will, of the, or on not the front side, because she has her head pop up on the back of the beanbag that she becomes, and then kind of flatten out, melt back into the beanbag, and then her mouth just appears, like I said, on the front side, I believe, of the bag, of the cushion. And Ilana wants to know why. She basically asked the question, did you ever find out why this Mimi was so hostile towards you, why she was the way she was? And Briella brings up the act of, what Mimi said was basically true. That as a child, as a child, this being Briella, she always dreamt that if she could ever have the powers to shapeshift in everything into whatever she wanted, basically shapeshift, into whatever she wanted, turn into anything she wants, that she would go and explore the world. She would go and explore the world and live out all these different lives of all these different things and stuff. Whether it's animals, people, vehicles, plants, you name it. As a kid, she basically had this dream that if she ever had those kind of powers, she would do that. But what happened is real life hit her and everything. And as she grew up, she realized that all that was at the time was childish dreams until, well, basically that dream became a reality when she gained these powers thanks to the lab incident that gave her the powers. So, she basically admits that what Mimi told her, in the previous chapters, 2 chapters ago, or 2 shifts ago anyway, is indeed true. That, she made a promise to herself to do all this stuff. But what's interesting, though, is that Briella points out that this is stuff she dreamed of and thought of when she was a kid. And that the only reason she now looked at it as a reality, is because she has these powers. She even explains to Ilana at one point earlier on in the series where she finally demonstrates to her, what she's able to do, like, having control of being able to do this and that, become this and that, and everything. So Ilana, surprisingly, upon hearing this, apologizes. She apologizes because she kept treating Briella like a child, and she shouldn't have done that. Briella's an adult, and Briella has, the mindset to make up her own decisions. And if she wants to go and travel the world and all that and do all these things, that's fine with her. And Crystal, her fiance, kind of agrees to, well, not kind of, but does, share those sentiments that, yeah, whatever you want to do, it's cool with me too. And Briella appreciates this. She hugs them both with her cushiony beanbag form, kind of forms arms and, on the sides, and hugs them kind of into her. But she does also admit that, like I said, when she told him basically that what Mimi said about her wanting to do all this when she got these kind of powers was true to an extent. She even admitted, like I said, that real life kind of hit her a little bit. Kind of hit her basically, in the face, to where, these dreams, she could still do them, but she has all these responsibilities now. She's got this lab work she's got to work on. She'd be leaving her friends, and if that was the case, she wouldn't have met the love of her life, stuff like that. She even jokes like, yeah, imagine, leaving, something on the, leaving some kind of a test or experiment, just, in the final state, just ready for its final stages to be looked at, and it doesn't get looked at for another decade because you're spending that decade as a tree, So she jokes around the fact that even though she could do it, she'd be giving up a lot of stuff, and she doesn't want to do that. And that's the one thing that Mimi didn't understand, that she would have missed out on all that, going around the world and doing all this stuff, even though, like I said, moments later, she's reaffirmed by Ilana and Crystal, that, hey, you're our friend, you're a grown woman, you can make any decision you want, and we're cool with it. Even Crystal's like, hey, I'm your fiance, I love you, I support whatever decision you want to make. And like I said, Briella's happy about this. They kind of just chat a little bit and everything as to what they're going to do next. And again, they're going to basically get the house repaired and all that. And it seems like what Michelle's doing in the later portion of this chapter / shift is she's teasing potentially, a little bit of intimacy, a little bit of NFSW action in the next chapter, or maybe even a 0.5 chapter, or not 0.5 chapter, but a 0.5 extension of this chapter. She's teasing either in the next chapter we're going to have some kind of NFSW intimacy, eroticness to an extent between Crystal and Briella. But we might also, knowing how Michelle is sometimes, not really, but knowing how, she teases that a little bit in one story or in one shift in chapter and then extends it later on, we might see it in a 0.5. Not saying we will. It might just be saved for the next full-on shift and chapter. But overall, this is a pretty cool epilogue, if you will, to this multi-part arc in the series. I thought it was well done. From when it's first discovered that part of her is now grown sentient, to the conclusion, to kind of the revelation that sentient part of her that became sentient and took on a life of its own represents a younger side, a younger part of her life. A previous time in her life, a childish, side of her life that she's grown out of, but that part of her didn't. So, again, really interesting, really interesting, and kind of down to earth aftermath. As it's entitled, I should say, epilogue to this mini arc that they did with the doppelganger and everything. And I will say this: it does explore, the possibilities of this kind of stuff happening, again in the series. But the way Michelle is basically pointed out to somebody that commented on it, well, not commented on it, but basically said, I think in the description, we may not see this kind of thing happen again. She's not ruling it out For one, I know that, but for right now, it will be quite some time before we see it again. Now, like I just mentioned, she did say that in the description, because in the description, what she does, what she does is, this is Michelle pointing this out, DeviantArt's Michelle, that says this in the description. She says this. This is what she says in the descriptions to kind of explain kind of what was going on in these arcs. This is Michelle, aka DeviantArts, and that's DEZZIE Arts. This is what she said in the description to kind of explain what was going on, because she said there was a number of criticisms that have been made regarding this arc, and in digesting the comments, she found that they were valid questions and concerns. Now, this is what she says, and I quote, in response to that, this is what she says, and I quote, "I believe part of the issue comes to the old trap of a writer making certain assumptions about how things will be interpreted because they have inside knowledge and neglect to step outside their own head to see the story how a reader without that inside knowledge would view it. In my opinion, my biggest error was not properly communicating Mimi's personality, since she represented Briella's childhood fantasies. I intended her to have a childish mindset colored by a pallor of self-righteous indignation. Okay, let me reread that. Since she represented Briella's childhood fantasies, I intended her to have a childish mindset colored by a palette of self-righteous indignation at perceived sights. I viewed her as impatient, intellectually and experimentally, not experimentally, but I viewed her as impatient, intellectually and experimentally, well, basically, she viewed her, what she's saying is she viewed Mimi as impatient, intelligent, and experience-wise inferior to Briella. Continuing on, and I quote, "Immature, verging on childish, and incidentally cruel. In that way, children can be, because they've yet to learn empathy." Hold on. The sort who doesn't make deep plans but instead reacts to whatever situation is in front of them. She wanted to take what she believed to be her place as the quote-unquote real Briella in that instant gratification way children often so prone. In retrospect, I see the arc would have benefited from another shift/chapter where I could have better explored Mimi and more effectively contrasted her with Briella. I suppose the next question would be, could Mimi make a return? As the saying goes, nothing is impossible in fiction, though I do not expect she will make another appearance anytime soon. So, what she's getting at there is basically, Michelle DeviantArt takes kind of responsibility of the fact that during this arc, in this, I think, what was it, multi-part arc, I think 4-part arc or something like that, that she didn't take the time to explain why this part of Briella became sentient, why it took on the persona of Mimi, why it wanted to assert itself as the real Briella, kind of take the real Briella's place as she put it, the quote-unquote real Briella. And that's basically because Mimi, and it's alluded to, like I said, in this recent chapter/shift, is a representation of Briella's childhood. She is a representation of her childhood and her childhood dreams of, always hoping that if she got these kind of powers, she'd do everything she wanted to do. She would do what any kid would do with these kind of powers. Any person in her childish mind would do with these powers, and that's just go out, explore the world, have fun, live the life, live multiple lives as different things, people, and all that. yet not understanding that she, Mimi, is not the real Briella like she claimed to be, because she's a child. She's basically the representation of the child version of Briella, and not the real deal. And the only reason she would assume that she is the real deal is because, to her, being a child, still having that child mindset, of immaturity and experience and intelligence wise lacking, she has that mindset of, hey, I'm the real deal because I would have fun with these powers. I'd do all this kind of stuff because that's what we were supposed to do. But because she represents that childhood side of Briella, it never happened. It never happened. And that's what upset her, because the Briella that she was part of, the adult Briella, the one that's grown up and is, living life to its fullest as a responsible adult, that Briella, even though she remembers these things and likes to sometimes, kind of have fun once in a while doing them, has moved on. But yet this portion of her has not, or didn't, basically. So overall, a nice explanation by Michelle DeviantArt on why, Mimi was the way she was, and a nice apologetic, letter, I guess you could say, by her, kind of apologizing for not explaining why Mimi was the way she was. So, I will link the recent chapter in the description. You guys can check it out for yourselves, as well as read the statement in the description that Michelle put. But overall, I thought, like I said, I thought it was a good conclusion, good epilogue. And I cannot wait to see what they do in the next several chapters as we head more towards the 250th issue, which ironically is going to be around Valentine's Day next year, which, is coming up faster than I think a lot of us expect. So can't wait to see how they build to that part. I know that she's got some, she's probably got a special non-shift / chapter of Metamorphosed to Malleability set up for Halloween, as well as Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I'm looking forward to those. But like I said, I think what we're going to get in this next chapter, if not done in a extended 0.5, version of this chapter, I think what we're going to get is a very intimate NFSW erotic moment between Briella and Crystal. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I got a feeling we will. We'll get something like that in the story. And speaking of what I think is going to happen next, I've got a feeling that the people that Briella is working with, the people that Ilana is suspicious of, because, she feels they're not telling her everything. I got a feeling they're going to let it slip that they knew about what happened with Briella and her doppelganger. And then that's going to really, in my opinion, not, set Briella off, in a rage or anything. But basically, it's definitely going to make her want to know, okay, what else have you been hiding from me? I want the truth. So yeah, I definitely see something like that coming up on the road in the next couple of shifts / chapters that Michelle does. But let me know what your thoughts are, guys. Let me know down below. Comment if you like. Live chat during the premiere. Like the video. Super chat, super stickers are open during the live chat. Super thanks afterwards. Again, the link to this recent shift, as well as the entire series up to now, will be in the description. Check it out. I highly recommend it. Also, support me at patreon.com. So BW Roses at the $1, $3 tier. BW Roses discussion live for audio podcast locations except for Pandora. Also, check me out at DeviantArt at DeviantArt.com. So that's BVW1979. Also, check me out at VENMO at BW Roses, and at VENMO at Brian-Walmer-2, and at Cash App at BW Roses 98. And at my Teespring store as well. But until next time, guys, I will talk to you all later. And again, check out the story. I don't think you'll be disappointed in what you hear. Or what you read, basically. So until next time, guys, I will talk to you later.